I've been hesitant to cover delivery driver stories because they reveal how vulnerable these workers really are. They're alone, they're going to addresses they've never been before, and they're expected to complete deliveries quickly no matter what red flags they notice. But these 3 submissions were too important to ignore, and they contain warnings every gig worker needs to hear. The gig economy has created millions of delivery jobs, but it's also created millions of situations where workers are isolated, unprotected, and dependent on algorithms that can't account for human danger. No background checks on customers, no security backup, no way to know if an address leads to a safe situation or something much worse. Tonight, S3 stories come from delivery drivers who encountered situations that went from routine to terrifying in seconds. Their experiences contain crucial lessons about trusting your instincts, recognizing danger signs, and understanding that no delivery is worth your safety. This story comes from Kayla, a 24-year-old food delivery driver who worked for multiple apps in Austin, Texas. She learned that not every delivery address leads to a customer waiting for food. I'd been doing food delivery for about 8 months when this happened. It was good money, flexible hours, and I liked being on my own schedule. I worked mostly dinner shifts, 5 p.m. to midnight, delivering for 3 different apps to maximize my earnings. I developed a system and learned to spot potential problems. Apartments with broken entry systems, addresses in isolated areas, customers who didn't respond to messages. I'd learned which situations to avoid. But this delivery seemed completely normal at first. It came through around 9 p.m. on a Thursday, Thai food order, decent tip, address in a residential neighborhood I'd delivered to before. The customer's name was Amanda, and she'd left specific delivery instructions. Please bring to back door. Front door is broken. Text when you arrive. Nothing about this seemed suspicious. Broken front doors happen. Backdoor deliveries are common. The neighborhood was safe, well lit, and I'd never had problems there. I picked up the food and drove to the address. It was a single-story house at the end of a quiet street, surrounded by similar homes with lights on and cars in driveways. Normal suburban neighborhood. But when I pulled up, something felt immediately wrong. The house was completely dark. No porch lights, no interior lights visible, no car in the driveway. The lawn was overgrown, and there were newspapers piled up on the front porch like no one had been home in weeks. I sat in my car for a moment, staring at the house. Every instinct told me this wasn't right. But the app showed this as the correct address. The order was paid for, and I'd already driven 15 minutes to get here. I texted the customer, "Hi Amanda, I'm outside with your food. The house looks dark. Are you home?" No response. I waited 3 minutes, watching the house. Still no lights, no movement, no reply to my text. According to app policy, I was supposed to leave the food at the designated location and take a photo as proof of delivery. But the delivery instructions said to bring it to the back door, which meant walking around this dark, clearly empty house in the dark. That's when I made the decision that probably saved my life. I wasn't going to the back door. I took a photo of the house from my car with the food clearly visible in the frame, marked the delivery as complete, and started to drive away. As I was backing out of the driveway, I saw movement in my rearview mirror. Someone was coming around the side of the house from the backyard, not from the front door, from the back, exactly where the delivery instructions had told me to go. It was a man, not a woman named Amanda. He was moving quickly toward my car, waving his arms, shouting something I couldn't hear through my closed windows. I didn't stop. I put my car in drive and left, watching in my mirror as the man stood in the middle of the street, still trying to flag me down. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to pull over 2 blocks away to calm down. That's when I got a message through the app from Amanda, angry, Aggressive messages demanding to know why I hadn't brought the food to the back door, accusing me of being lazy and incompetent. The messages felt threatening, not like someone upset about cold food. They felt like someone angry that I hadn't followed instructions that would have led me to an isolated backyard. I reported the delivery to the app platform and to the police. When the police checked the address, they discovered the house had been vacant for 3 months. The owner was overseas, and no one named Amanda had authorization to be there. The police also told me something that made my blood run cold. There had been 2 attempted assaults on delivery drivers in that area over the past month. Both incidents involved luring drivers to vacant houses with fake food orders, trying to get them to isolated locations away from street visibility. In one case, a driver had been robbed at gunpoint. In another, a female driver had been grabbed but managed to fight off her attacker and escape. I was the 3rd target, but I was the only one who didn't follow the instructions to go to the back of the house. By trusting my instincts and refusing to leave my car when something felt wrong, I'd avoided becoming another victim. The account that placed the order was immediately deactivated by the platform, but the person was never caught. They'd used a burner phone and stolen credit card information, making them impossible to trace. After that night, I completely changed how I approached deliveries. I started following strict personal safety rules. Never go to back doors or isolated areas of properties, regardless of delivery instructions. If a house looks vacant or wrong, don't leave the car. Contact the customer first, and if they don't respond immediately, leave. Always trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Park in well-lit areas with easy exit access. Keep car doors locked until I'm ready to make the delivery. Never complete deliveries in truly isolated areas without verifying the customer is legitimate. I shared my experience on delivery driver forums, and I learned I wasn't alone. Dozens of other drivers had similar stories, lured to vacant properties, given instructions that would have isolated them, barely escaping dangerous situations. The gig economy apps have some safety features, but they can't protect you from people who create fake accounts specifically to target drivers. The apps can't see what we see when we pull up to an address. They can't sense when something's wrong. We have to protect ourselves, and that means being willing to refuse deliveries, violate customer instructions, and risk bad ratings if our safety instincts are triggered. I still do delivery work, but I'm much more careful now. And I tell every new driver I meet, your completion rate doesn't matter if you're dead. Trust your instincts, refuse suspicious deliveries, and never let an app algorithm override your survival instincts. The food or package isn't worth your life. Ever. This story comes from Andre, a 29-year-old package delivery driver working for a major shipping company in industrial areas of Detroit. He discovered that not all delivery addresses lead to legitimate businesses. I'd been driving delivery routes for 3 years when this happened. Unlike food delivery, package delivery often takes you to commercial and industrial areas, warehouses, factories, business parks. These aren't always the safest neighborhoods, but they're part of the job. I'd delivered to some sketchy locations before, but I'd always followed company protocol. Park in visible areas, deliver quickly, never enter buildings unless it's a secure front office. The company GPS and route planning usually kept us safe by scheduling deliveries during business hours. But this delivery was different from the start. It came up on my scanner near the end of my shift, around 7 p.m. in February. The address was in an industrial district I'd never been to before, not on my usual route. The package was marked signature required, which meant I couldn't just leave it at the door. When I pulled up to the address, I realized immediately this wasn't right. The location was an old warehouse in what looked like an abandoned industrial complex. Multiple buildings, all clearly unused for years. Broken windows, graffiti, overgrown lots. No cars, No lights, no signs of any legitimate business operating there. The GPS showed I was at the correct address, but the building number on the package didn't match any visible numbers on the structures. Everything here looked like it had been abandoned for at least a decade. I called my supervisor on the radio. "Hey, I've got a weird delivery. Address leads to what looks like an abandoned warehouse. No business signage, place looks empty. What do you want me to do?" My supervisor checked the shipping information. Address is listed as a business receiving location. Customer name is ... That's weird. There's no company name, just an individual. "You sure the place is abandoned?" "Pretty sure." "Want me to just mark it undeliverable?" "Try knocking first. If no one's there, bring it back to the depot." I really didn't want to get out of my truck, but company policy was clear. Attempt delivery first. Document the attempt, then mark undeliverable if no one responds. I grabbed the package, a medium-sized box, surprisingly heavy, and walked up to what looked like the main entrance. The door was industrial metal, covered in rust and graffiti. There was a doorbell, surprisingly, and I pressed it. To my shock, it worked. I heard it ring inside the building. I waited, expecting nothing. But after about 30 seconds, I heard footsteps inside. Someone was actually there. The door opened about 6 inches, held by a chain. I could see part of a man's face in the crack. Middle-aged, unshaven, suspicious eyes looking me over. "Package delivery," I said, holding up the box so he could see it. "I need a signature." "Leave it," he said. "I need a signature. Can't leave it without one." The man studied me through the crack for a long moment. "Wait here." He closed the door, and I heard multiple locks being undone. That's when I realized this allegedly abandoned warehouse had at least 4 different locks on the door. The door opened wider, and the man stepped out. He wasn't alone. I could see 2 other men in the darkness behind him, watching me. "Give me the scanner," the man said. "I can hold it while you sign," I offered. "We weren't supposed to let people take the scanner device." "Give it to me," he repeated, more firmly. Something in his tone told me not to argue. I handed him the scanner. He signed quickly with his finger, a signature that was just a scribble, completely illegible. Then instead of handing back the scanner, he grabbed the package from my other hand and stepped back inside. "Hey, I need the scanner back," I said. He looked at me with an expression I'll never forget, not hostile, but warning, like he was trying to tell me something without saying it out loud. "Leave, now," he said quietly. "Don't come back here. Don't send anyone else here. This was the only delivery. Understand?" He tossed the scanner out to me, and I caught it reflexively. Then he stepped back and closed the door. I heard all 4 locks clicking back into place. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds, my brain trying to process what just happened. Then I ran back to my truck, locked the doors, and drove out of that industrial complex as fast as safety allowed. I immediately called my supervisor and explained what happened. He told me to come straight back to the depot and not to complete any more deliveries that night. When I got back, my supervisor and a company security officer interviewed me about the encounter. They were particularly interested in the fact that there were multiple people in the building and multiple locks on the door. "Did you see anything inside the building?" the security officer asked. It was dark, but I could see some kind of equipment in the background. Looked industrial, but I couldn't tell what it was. They filed a report and contacted the shipping company that had originally sent the package. That company had no record of any legitimate business at that address. The package had been paid for with a prepaid shipping label, untraceable. 2 weeks later, I learned from my supervisor that the police had raided that warehouse based on tips from multiple sources. They found an illegal operation. I was never told exactly what kind, but it was serious enough that several people were arrested on federal charges. The package I'd delivered had apparently contained equipment or materials related to their operation. I'd unknowingly been used to transport something illegal to people who were dangerous enough to warrant a federal investigation. The man who'd answered the door had probably been trying to warn me, in his way, to leave and never come back. He could have taken my scanner, could have done worse, but instead, he'd let me go with just a warning. After that experience, I became much more careful about commercial deliveries to unfamiliar addresses. I started researching addresses that seemed suspicious, using Google Maps to preview locations before I arrived. If a business address shows up as an abandoned building on Street View, I call the customer before attempting delivery. If I can't reach them or verify the location is legitimate, I refuse the delivery and return the package. The company wasn't happy with me initially. Returning packages hurts efficiency metrics. But after explaining my experience and the fact that I'd been unwittingly involved in a federal investigation, they created new protocols for drivers to follow when addresses seem suspicious. I learned that delivery drivers are sometimes used as unwitting couriers for illegal operations. Criminals use legitimate shipping services because delivery drivers have access that regular people don't. We can go to commercial addresses. We have packages that don't raise suspicion, and we're expected to make deliveries quickly without asking questions. But we also have the right to refuse deliveries that feel dangerous or illegal. No package is worth getting caught up in criminal activity or putting ourselves in danger. If you're a delivery driver and an address takes you to an abandoned building, a location that doesn't match the shipping information, or a situation where multiple people are clearly operating something secret, document it, report it, and don't be afraid to refuse the delivery. Your job is to deliver packages to legitimate recipients, not to facilitate criminal operations. And no company policy is worth your safety or your freedom. Our final story comes from Finn, a 22-year-old late-night food delivery driver working in a college town in Oregon. He learned that some delivery requests are designed specifically to isolate drivers in vulnerable situations. I worked the late-night shift for food delivery apps, 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., mostly serving drunk college students who wanted food after the bars closed. It was actually good money, huge tips, lots of orders, and relatively safe because I was delivering to dorm buildings and apartment complexes where there were always people around. I'd been doing it for about 6 months when I got a delivery request that should have raised red flags immediately, but I was tired and not paying attention. The order came through around 1:30 a.m., large food order, $80 worth of burgers and fries, $20 tip. Great money for one delivery. The address was listed as a parking lot at a city park on the edge of town. Most apps don't allow delivery to parking lots or public spaces. They require actual addresses. But this one had somehow gone through the system. The customer note said, "Delivering to food truck workers who can't leave their location. We'll meet you in the parking lot. Flash your lights when you arrive." This seemed plausible. Food truck workers working late, can't leave their truck, need food delivered to their location. The generous tip suggested they were grateful for the late-night service. I accepted the delivery, picked up the food from a burger place that was still open, and drove toward the park. It was about 10 minutes outside the main college area, but still within the delivery zone. As I drove, I started to feel uneasy. The park area was completely dark, no streetlights this far from downtown. The road got narrower and more isolated. I hadn't seen another car in several minutes. When I pulled into the park's parking lot, it was empty. No food truck, no workers, no one waiting. Just an empty lot surrounded by dark woods, with a single dim light near the park's closed restroom building. I texted the customer, "I'm here but don't see anyone. Where should I meet you?" The response came immediately. "We're parked at the other end of the lot near the trail entrance. Can't see your car. Drive over here and flash your lights." The trail entrance was at the far end of the parking lot, even darker, right next to the woods. Something about this request triggered every warning bell in my head. I responded, "I'll wait here by the parking lot entrance. You can walk over to get your food." There was a long pause before the next message. "Our truck has a flat tire. We can't leave it. Please bring the food to us. We're right there. Just drive over." Now I was certain something was wrong. If they had a food truck with a flat tire, I should be able to see it from where I was parked. The parking lot wasn't that big. And why would a food truck be at a city park at 1:30 a.m. when the park was closed? I made a decision. I took a photo of the food bags, marked the delivery as complete in the app, and left the food on a bench near the parking lot entrance where it would be visible from anywhere in the lot. Then I drove out of there. As I was leaving, my headlights swept across the far end of the parking lot near the trail entrance where the customer had wanted me to go. I saw something that made my heart stop. A car parked in the shadows near the trees, headlights off, with at least 2 people inside watching me leave. If I had driven to that dark corner of the parking lot as requested, I would have been isolated, blocked in by the woods and potentially by their car, with no witnesses and no easy escape route. I drove straight to a well-lit gas station and called the police. I explained that I'd been sent to an isolated location under false pretenses, that there was no food truck and no legitimate customers, and that there were people hiding in the dark corner of the parking lot who tried to lure me to their location. The police took my report and said they'd send an officer to check the park. They called me back 20 minutes later to tell me the parking lot was now empty. The car I'd seen had left after I did. The account that placed the order was deleted from the app by the time I tried to report it. It had been created that same night with a prepaid debit card and a burner phone number, completely untraceable. The police told me this wasn't the first time someone had used delivery apps to lure people to isolated locations. There had been robberies of delivery drivers, assaults, even one attempted kidnapping, all using the same pattern. Large orders with big tips sent to isolated locations, with instructions designed to draw victims away from any witnesses. Delivery drivers are perfect targets. We're alone. We're expected to go to wherever the address leads, and we're often carrying cash from other deliveries. Late-night drivers are especially vulnerable because we're operating in darkness with fewer people around. After that night, I completely changed my approach to late-night deliveries. I never go to parking lots, parks, or isolated areas regardless of the tip amount. If an address seems off or doesn't match a legitimate location, I refuse the delivery before I even pick up the food. I research addresses before I leave the restaurant, using maps to see if the location looks legitimate. I trust my instincts. If something feels like a setup, it probably is. I always keep my car doors locked and windows up, unless I'm actively handing food to a customer. I tell other drivers where I'm going and when I expect to be back. I shared my experience on driver forums and social media, and I learned this is happening in cities across the country. Delivery drivers are being specifically targeted because we're expected to go to addresses without question. We work alone and often carry money, and we're trained to prioritize customer service over our own safety. The apps have some safety features, but they can't prevent determined predators from creating fake accounts and luring drivers to dangerous situations. The apps can't see that a parking lot delivery is actually an isolated trap. They can't sense when a large tip is being used as bait. We have to protect ourselves, and that means being willing to refuse deliveries that don't feel right, even if it means losing money or getting bad ratings. I eventually quit late-night delivery because the risk wasn't worth the money. I now work day shifts in busy, well-lit areas where there are always people around and addresses lead to real homes and businesses. But I still think about that night, about how close I came to driving into that dark corner of the parking lot where people were waiting for me, about what might have happened if I hadn't trusted my instincts and refused to follow their instructions. The $20 tip wasn't worth my safety. No amount of money is worth putting yourself in a situation where you're isolated, vulnerable, and at the mercy of people who clearly don't have good intentions. If you're a delivery driver and you get an order that takes you to an isolated location, that asks you to go to a dark or remote area, that involves meeting someone in a parking lot or park, refuse it. Report it. Don't risk your safety for completion rates or customer satisfaction. Your life is worth more than any delivery, any tip, any rating. Trust your instincts, refuse suspicious orders, and never let an app algorithm put you in danger. Because sometimes the customer isn't really a customer at all. Sometimes they're predators using the gig economy to find their next victim. And the only thing standing between you and danger is your willingness to say no. These 3 stories remind us that delivery drivers face unique dangers that most people never think about. Kyla's instinct to refuse a delivery to a suspicious house, Andre's unwitting involvement in criminal activity, and Finn's near miss with a deliberate setup, all demonstrate that the gig economy has created millions of opportunities for both work and danger. The most important lessons from these stories: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. No delivery is worth ignoring that warning. Research addresses before you arrive. Use maps and Street View to preview locations, especially for unfamiliar areas. Never go to isolated locations alone. Parks, vacant buildings, dark parking lots. These aren't safe delivery locations, regardless of what the app says. Your safety matters more than ratings. Refusing suspicious deliveries may hurt your metrics, but it could save your life. Document everything. If something feels wrong, take photos, save messages, report to the platform and police. Communicate with other drivers. Share experiences. Warn each other about dangerous locations and suspicious customers. Know your rights. You can refuse any delivery that makes you uncomfortable. No company policy is worth your safety. For customers who order delivery, please make sure your addresses are clear, your locations are well lit and accessible, and you respond promptly to driver messages. Most delivery workers are trying to make an honest living, and your cooperation makes their dangerous job a little bit safer. For gig economy platforms, implement better verification for customers. Flag isolated delivery locations. Give drivers more power to refuse suspicious orders without penalty. And take safety reports seriously. And for delivery drivers everywhere, your work matters, your safety matters, and no delivery is ever worth your life. Trust yourself, protect yourself, and know that refusing a dangerous delivery isn't being difficult, it's being smart. Thank you to Kayla, Andre, and Finn for sharing their experiences. Their stories could save lives, and their willingness to speak up helps protect other drivers from similar dangers. Stay safe out there, and remember, if something doesn't feel right, drive away. The gig can wait. Your life can't.